Welcome back, and this is just an intro to this video that I created many months ago. I've had a lot of delays. I am one man and got a lot going on, and this is not my full-time job. I'm very sorry. I do feel bad. Recently I was fired for political reasons, and I might need to emergency relocate to get away from this political BS. And that might mean I have to get rid of things. I have lots of stuff. I invested in lots of tools and car, that car. And I before I was fired, I did buy a box truck to build, an RV, a race car hauler, and worst case scenario, a sort of bug out, non-emergency bug out, relocation vehicle, we can say. Part of that, I need to build a power system, so I have bunch of these A123 modules. Looks like some have some bad cells. I'm not sure, so I'm testing those, as you can see behind me. The good old BMS there as well. So some capacity testing. Anyways, I figure I better get this video out if this is the end of the Twincharger build. And as far as the theoretical stuff, the plan was to build out the car and learn as I go. Like most of my videos, I'm learning as I go, and once I figure it out, I share that information with you because I went through it. I know there's a lot of good YouTubers out there who kind of just read the books and give you that information. That's good. For me, not as confident to do that. I'd rather learn by doing, as I said. So the car, I had several issues with the Solstice. Just these dang oil leaks, and then I went to a standalone ECU Master Black. I had the engine out a few times sealing these oil leaks, and it is idling under that ECU, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's 15 degrees out, 20 degrees out. Still doesn't matter. Right now I'm building out this truck and figuring out the electrical system. I have a diesel heater, so I'm trying to get the bare minimums going in case I need to live out of this vehicle and relocate if I can't find a job, and for political reasons not find the job. Here we go. Here's the video. Enjoy.
Mechatronics.
Welcome back to Mega Mechatronics. This is part 4 of the How to Twincharger series. We're going to get back into the classroom. We're going to look at the different combinations, what manufacturers have actually put out there and invested money in, and then we'll start taking a deep dive into turbo plus blower, the original style system. And that's how I built my car. My car is a turbo plus blower series system. The turbo blows in the supercharger. We'll take a deeper look at that, and then of course continuing the series, I'm going to show you how I built my Twincharger system, and then continuing in the future, assuming that everyone survives this and everything's going to be okay, that I still have some things to develop, and putting in a bypass and things like that, putting on a smaller pulley for the supercharger, and having a bunch of fun blowing up engines, whatever it takes. So here we go. And before we get into part number 4, we need to correct this slide from part number 2. Stupid! So let's go back through this slide and we'll make these corrections. Again, we have the traditional roots, straight lobe, a bit less efficient. Then we can improve the efficiency. So this is the root style with a twist, and they're using symmetrical rotors, and that's going to be very important when comparing that to the screw. So roots with a twist would be like the M62 right there, and the TVS, the Twin Vortices series, has a bit more aggressive twist, but again, the rotors are symmetrical. So now we get into the screw type. We have the Kenny Bell and the Whipple shown here, and they have asymmetrical rotors, so the rotors are different. And Kenny Bell and Whipple do it a little bit different. If you look very closely, you can see they're using different vane counts.
Let's look at an individual chamber. It enlarges, is filled with gas, and then closed by a circumferential edge in the casing. The rotors now transport the gas to the discharge side, where the chamber shrinks and the retained gas is compressed. Let's view the process again, this time from below. Once the gas is compressed, the chamber reaches another port connected to a discharge nozzle, and the gas flows out.
Welcome back to part 4. We're going to look at the types of systems, popular types of systems that exist that OEMs have developed, and as well as race teams. So we sort of looked at what and why. We still need to cover a little bit of research, series and parallel systems, and these other topics as well. There are 3 certain things in life. It's death, taxes, and I've added on physics. And you're not going to be able to escape physics, but I hopefully will help break this down and simplify this so that these charts don't look so scary. And it's very, very simple. I'll give you the answer right now. The bottom of the graph, if it says it's an airflow, that's essentially your horsepower. So you're going to have to figure out what your horsepower is to get your estimated airflow. So that's how you figure out the bottom. And then, of course, here is your boost. So this chart here, this map, is essentially roundabout simplified. It's your boost versus your horsepower. So you can even think of it as that, your boost versus your horsepower. And from there, that should drive you to figure out the boost, the pressure ratio at your boost and at your altitude, etc., and the efficiency of your engine to get your estimated airflow to get your horsepower. So it's not that bad, and you're not going to be able to escape this reality of physics. And these maps here are a good rule of thumb. They're a guideline. They are not the be-all, end-all. And I'm sure there's some racers out there who win races while being completely off of this map, and those they can do certain things to make that happen, and such as discounted or free turbochargers. So let's take a quick look at twin turbos. And twin turbos are turbos working in parallel, performing the same. So they are the same turbos. And you can tell that by the impeller RPM. They're going to be relatively close in a twin turbo system. They're going to have the same back pressures and the same pressure ratios. So it's not really a twin charger, given that they're basically everything's the same, and it's sort of acting like one big one. And I would agree that if you combine twin turbos with maybe a blower, that we could probably call that a twin charger. And then that brings up triple and quad chargers. I guess why not? It depends on how you define twin charger. So having 3 airflow devices, maybe that's triple charging. 4 airflow devices, who knows? Quad charging. And let's take a look at turbos versus centrifugal versus blower versus nitrous. And all of these technologies have survived throughout the years. All of these technologies win races. So the point of this chart, is to sort of show that they're all almost equal, and then they have strengths and weaknesses in different areas, but they're all relatively the same. They're all capable. If you look at the score at the bottom, they're all relatively capable. I think a lot of these can be argued, but I guess this is my opinion. So we're looking at 1,000 horsepower turbo, 1,000 horsepower centrifugal, compressor, 1,000 horsepower blower, and then a multi-stage nitrous. And another thing we need to consider is looking at turbo versus blower costs. So here's an example. This is a LS series, so this is turbos for a V8, rated for 1,150 horsepower max, and the cost of the turbocharger with the turbine is about $1,050. So $1,050 to get 1,150 horsepower capability. And let's look at this ProCharger, which is rated at 1,000 horsepower, so less horsepower. Just for the head unit with the gearbox is $3,224 on sale. So that is roughly 3 times the cost for nearly a little bit less horsepower. Still quite a bit of horsepower. And both of these, of course, you're going to need equipment to support it. The bracketry, I would conflate the brackets and pulley system for the ProCharger in the same class as having to get exhaust manifold system created. Both are going to be a little bit pricey. The pulley and bracket system probably going to be more pricey. So those are kind of 1,000 plus horsepower units. So here we have sort of a kit that would go on a V8. It's going to give you 6 psi boost, adding about 120 horsepower, adding and 120 foot-pounds on top of the stock engine. So we're looking at half the horsepower, 500 horsepower for $6,900. And this is a TVS blower. And let's look at another blower here. This is a Whipple. And $7,400 is again going to get you something like plus 130 horsepower. And you can see there's a huge cost disparity, starting with the turbochargers being the least best bang for your buck, and then these Whipples and the TVS, these blowers that bolt on the top of your engine, are going to be very pricey. Next, we're going to take a look at these figurative Twincharger combinations. Some of these are non-traditional compared to the original Twincharger turbo blower system. So you can see when you open up the definition, it kind of opens the floodgates here of the different combinations. So we can take a look at a few of these, the ones that exist right now or have people have invested in. And first would be the Turbo E-Turbo, and that's made by Audi. So up top there, circled under the engine cover, is a 2-stage turbocharger, so exhaust-driven centrifugal, and that's going to blow through the charger intercooler, and then we get to this piping situation down here. So there is an electrically driven compressor and a larger bypass pipe with a bypass valve, so you can think of that as a secondary throttle valve, on-off type of switch. So at low RPM, that little compressor is going to boost up, and when the bypass valve closes, it can't backflow, so it will be able to build boost in the intake manifold. So if we look at kind of a sketch diagram here, we can try to follow the paths of the air. So we have our exhaust driven turbocharger here. So the air comes in through the air filter there. It gets blown through the intercooler. So the larger one's optimized for high speed, the turbocharger, the exhaust driven for high speed, and then the electric compressor is going to be for low speed. So at less than 3,000 RPM, the bypass valve is closed and the E-turbo is activated. So assume that this is a high torque demand by the driver situation. So that's going to give you the low end boost, the low end torque right there. And then there will be a transition above 3,000 RPM where the bypass valve will open and then the E-turbo will be shut off. There probably will be some flow through the electric driven compressor as long as it's sealed. It's sort of acting like no restriction. And that's basically the system here. So we covered turbo, E-turbo. What else is there? Let's take a look at the turbo on turbo. So this would not be a Twincharger, or twin turbo rather. So we'll look at compound turbos here first. And as you can see, the challenge with compound turbos is really all of the piping, the exhaust manifold, the extensive labor and packaging, and all of these, they look really cool. And a lot of that's going to be driven by packaging to get it into the engine bay. These two turbos with a properly sized exhaust pipe here. So it's really cool stuff. It works. It's been around. But you could see that the disadvantage right here. So if we look at compound turbos, there'll be compressors in series and compressors in parallel. So this is compressors in series. Again, we start with our larger turbo, has the air filter on it. That larger turbo is going to blow into the smaller turbo. So the larger turbo is for your high speed, the small turbo is for your low speed. Both are exhaust driven. So the large turbo blows into the small turbo, passes through the intercooler into the engine. But at the low speed, so we want low speed torque, all of the exhaust energy you can see is blowing through the small turbo first. So the small turbo is getting the majority of the energy, and of course the exhaust energy flows through the larger turbo. But right now the small turbo is being spooled up and producing that low end torque. And when we transition to our high speed power zone, you'll see that the valve will open, the green valve. It could be a wastegate or exhaust valve of some sort. That's going to start bypassing that energy to the larger turbo so that the larger turbo can take over and give you that high end flow, that high end performance. And the other type of turbo on turbo compound turbos would be the compressors in parallel. A little bit similar. So we got our large turbo again. And for low speed applications, the valves are closed. So the air is being forced from the large turbo through the small turbo. And technically that's sort of series right now. And you can see all of the exhaust energy again is going to the small turbo to boost up for the low speed. With that smaller turbine housing can spool up that compressor. And then for high speed power, the valves open and you can see the large turbo has a clear unrestricted path to the intercooler and into the engine. And on the hot side, the exhaust side, we see all of the exhaust energy being routed to the large turbo. And let's come back to our figurative Twincharger combinations. We'll look at another non-traditional Twincharger here, and that will be the turbo on nitrous. So nitrous is effective at all speed ranges. Properly tuned, you won't have a problem. and it can be used as anti-lag. So think about four-cylinder drifters who need a burst of torque, or even something like a hill climb where they need some power adders at the top of the mountain. So you could check this out. Papadakis Racing built this and tuned it. So the strategy, they used the nitrous, a little bit of nitrous. I don't know if they even go through a race, but they use that to boost it up, break those tires loose, and start getting into a skid. And now finally, we're going to take a look at the turbo plus blower. The traditional, the original turbo plus blower. 100% authentic. So let's take a look at the system here. And down below you see where the air intake is. So if you follow that path, it goes to the exhaust-driven centrifugal, the turbocharger. So through that compressor, the turbocharger compressor, it goes through air-to-air intercooler, which then feeds into a roots blower right there. Positive displacement roots blower. It is actually belt driven off the engine. It's just installed in this different configuration. So that blows through a secondary intercooler, another air-to-air, and then you'll see there's a large bypass there. And before the large bypass that recirculates to the turbo, right in front of that would be the throttle body going into the intake manifold. And this setup right here is found in the Lancia Delta S4, the original twin-charge car. And here's another view. You can sort of see that that's the lobes of that supercharger there, that positive displacement straight lobe supercharger. So again, the technology back then, the roots blower had excellent low-end performance, and the turbochargers had excellent high-end performance. So they combined those and created this. So if we take a look at our sketched view, again at low speed, with the blower in series, starting at the turbocharger, air filter blows into the intercooler, which then blows into the positive displacement supercharger. You see the purple valve there is closed right now. So everything is in series, the blower is in series. So the blower is actually going through another intercooler there before it goes into the engine. So for high speed power, you're going to want to open that valve and bypass some of that airflow around the supercharger. And what that's going to do is reduce the parasitic losses through the belt and the crankshaft. So you're going to reduce the torque losses, as well as reduce the heat input into the intake charge. We're going to reduce the compounded heat going in, so essentially reducing IATs, and we're giving a low restriction path. So when that turbocharger is spooled up, and the turbocharger is sized quite a bit larger than that positive displacement blower, so when that big turbo spools up, we're going to have to create a short path into the intake of the engine. And now we get to SUPURBO, which is a 2006 Pontiac Solstice. In 2006, they only offered a 2.4 liter naturally aspirated engine. And this would be on the Kappa platform, so you'll find the Sky shares the same platform as well as the Opal. So here's the SUPURBO engine bay, and we'll use some visual guides here. The engine exhaust energy feeds the turbocharger there, the exhaust-driven centrifugal compressor, and that's going to boost up, blow through. I'm using an air-to-water but we use the same icons here. We go through an intercooler, essentially, and then that's going to blow into this throttle body right here, which then you can follow that pipe, swoops around, and enters the rotors of the positive displacement supercharger, which then goes through another intercooler before it goes into the engine. So you can see this is very similar to the Lancia setup. We got our turbo blowing into the supercharger. And following this upload will be part 5. We'll go back to the Twincharger car build, kind of the specifics of my build, and we're going to get the race engine back together. I blew up the stock engine. We'll go into detail there. And then I think part 6 will be more science and sizing so that you can kind of get close with your Twincharger build. Well, that's it for part 4. Thanks for watching.